It might surprise you where I was born because I wasn't born here. I was a month old when my mother took me home here. Uh, she was originally from Dorchester, Massachusetts. And so when it came to having a baby, she made her way right back there. And she felt a bit safer and securer there, which I can understand. And anyway, she went down probably a month before, at least, and then I was born, and then she, a month later, brought me back here. So that was my start. My parents were incredible people. Like, they were, I didn't mention that they had a restaurant too. Then after I went to college, they got out of it, and my mother joined my father in this local general store. And what they did was they divided it right down the middle. And she had a coffee shop on one side. And she loved meeting people, and my father probably wouldn't admit to liking meeting people, but he did. He enjoyed people, and they were always interconnected with a lot of people in the community, and they valued people. They didn't, I was lucky. I was brought up in that kind of atmosphere. It was never, any complaints about people. It was always you accept people as they are, and that was their guiding rule. And you can see that this is sort of a corner that was a very busy corner, like the church and the general store. It had the telegraph. It was a communication spot. The community was a lot of, still seemed like there was a lot of people when I was growing up. There was square dancing, and there was places to go, where now there's not so much. My mother met a lot of people through the restaurant, and she was such a social kind of person that again, people brought in their pictures and their collections, and that's how it first started. The museum is the shelves were emptying because the gypsum company was leaving, and all the clothes that used to be sold were no need of them anymore. So she started filling up the shelves with dishes, and then people started bringing things in because they wanted it displayed. I've always loved history. I had a wonderful history teacher when I was in about grade 5, and I mean wonderful in that. Well, she was interesting. She used to tell us a lot of stories, and if we could deflect her off onto history, which she loved, we would not end up having to do other horrible things which we didn't love. And then at home, my grandmother was a big into local history. My mother's mother was very, she was always reciting poems and stories, and my father's people were always telling stories. They'd get together and they'd tell funny stories, and then my mother was heavily involved, this was first originally a log house with no facilities, because everybody, the bathrooms were in the restaurant, the phone was in the restaurant, so they just used it like that. And my mother would come up with different ideas, and we'd all listen to them, and she'd go ahead and do them. It was sort of like that. But she suddenly died in 1988. My father had died in 81 of cancer, and then she, within 6-8 weeks, died of cancer. So that left us completely looking around and saying, well, ooh. So 3 of us in the family sort of got involved, my sister-in-law and my husband Kevin and myself, because we figured we should help out, but we didn't know very much, but we were prepared to learn, I guess. And so that's how we started, and we became involved with Iona Connection, because that was doable for us on Cape Breton land. My mother was involved, with Iona Connection before, and so it was natural, and there was such a level of cooperation. Everybody was an equal, and you just went in, and we sat down, and like you just enjoyed being there. I can't talk about the Iona connection without thinking of Jim St. Clair, because to me, really, although I said about everybody's attitude, but I think he was instrumental in laying the ground rules. I think he did that. He just seemed to be able to have the ability at a meeting to cut to the most important issue. He would go right to the main point. And that, he was an incredible leader in that way. With the Iona connection, well, I was a member. Well, we were members since, I don't know, the year dot, I guess. But, and I was on the board at one point in time. And I was the chair of this museum for, I think it was 19 years, until we decided that, thank heavens, and I got out of that, and I just focused mainly on the archives, because I knew that was an area we really needed to work on. So, but we've been there since '89, I guess. Building the museum was that was about 7 years. It didn't pop up overnight, although it did once we got the money. It came very quickly within, 3-4 months. But I see it more as like an educational kind of tool in a way for our history. That you use it, it becomes a teacher for anybody who drops in. If they just open an album and see a picture that tweaks their interest, 10 years down the road, I think you've achieved something there, We've been, fortunate. I think of The Spirit of Aspie Bay, which was a play that Bev Brett came and gathered memories from here and wrote it. That was, I'd say, the most successful community event that we ever did, because it brought in all ages, everybody. The acting that they did was incredible. And it told the story of this area. So we achieved an awful lot, and it's the funding for things like that. You don't particularly make a great deal of money, and for the amount of time that goes into it, but the benefits, the stories that came out of it, the music that came out of it was just like fabulous. So the people who never sang before in their lives were singing on stage. And people who never acted before, it was a big success. Fundraising in a small area, rural area, is very difficult, yes. So, because everything is so much smaller basis. I mean, everybody suffers from this, the schools. And we had a fundraising drive last year, and that has raised more money than we ever could have imagined. So we have many, again, connections that, like people who once lived here, or people who are moving here, or that have been very supportive of the museum, and that's been wonderful for us. Well, it's the contact with people that I value the most. I think, even when we're doing, we're taking pictures for Passage Project, and we're trying to sort out numbers and all that, that's really not my scene, but I'm doing it right now because I know it's crucial, and I know we have to double check on things, and we're doing that. Well, I love it here. And special would be, we have, every day here, of course, the weather is the big thing. If it's wet or cold or rainy, and we're obsessed with the weather, and we know that.